We just wanted to thank everyone first for joining us tonight for our wellness webinar. I've just got a couple of quick housekeeping issues that I'll go over. The first being that this call will be recorded for those who are not able to make it. We'll be sharing it and you'll be able to catch it on the replay. Secondly, we would really encourage questions at the end of the webinar. So there's a place on the bottom of the screen that you can type yours in, and Chantal will be answering them at the end of the call. Considering the circumstances with the coronavirus pandemic and with GFIT being a health and wellness company, we felt a moral obligation to the community to provide some extra support to help manage stress during these difficult times of uncertainty. And that's what brings us here tonight. So the topic of tonight's webinar is emotional resilience in times of social isolation. And everyone reacts differently during stressful situations. And right now, many of us are already in self-isolation. Our world, our routines have literally been turned upside down. And this is no doubt impacting our physical, our emotional, our mental, and even our financial wellness. So tonight's webinar will include practical self-care techniques to help manage stress, anxiety, psychosocial well-being, and much more. And I'm really excited to introduce our host and mental health advocate, Chantal Lacoste. Chantal Lacoste is the founder and certified coach behind Tilly and True. Is that the proper way to say it?
You bet, you got it.
She's a community coordinator for Manitoba's only child advocacy center, and her credentials and accomplishments are so vast that it would probably take the entire call for me to list them all. But I will say that she's been recognized as one of the top 100 most fascinating Manitobans, and Chantal's ultimate goal is to help empower others through their healing journey wherever they are at in their lives. She's a powerful spokeswoman for ending family violence, child abuse, conscious issues, including mental health and eating disorder awareness. So, thank you so much, Chantal, for joining us tonight. We're very, very grateful. And without further ado, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you so much, Grant. I have to say that you shortened that so perfectly. I've been trying to shorten my bio for a while, and you said it so well. So thank you. I appreciate that. Thank you, everyone, for being here. I'm super excited. This was a very quick webinar that we put together in terms of what's going on with the coronavirus. So thank you for taking that time to come here and be with us today. So I just, again, want to say a disclaimer that I'm not a psychologist. I am not a healthcare professional or an expert on what to do during the coronavirus outbreak. But what I am, as Grant said, is a mental health advocate, a peer support specialist. I'm a certified NLP practitioner, and a fellow human being trying to navigate the uncertainty of COVID-19, especially in self-isolation. So again, what Grant said, we have to acknowledge that everyone is hurting in wildly different ways. And there's no one size fits all approach to helping people with their mental health, like especially during this pandemic. So, but with today's seminar, my goal is to help promote some healthy coping strategies and practical self-care tools and some techniques to help manage our stress, anxiety, and psychosocial well-being. So the exercises we're going to do might also help us feel a little bit more connected with ourselves and with others. It might be a byproduct of that. It'll help us also practice how to maintain a sense of hope and positive thinking. So as you all know, and we also mentioned this on the CTV segment yesterday, that because limiting social contact is the best way to reduce the spread of coronavirus, it does not mean that isolation is easy for any of us. or most of us. So for some, isolation means that kind of brings on those loneliness feelings, that boredom. It means introspection, rumination, catastrophizing, all or nothing thinking. These things can happen. And with that can come negative emotions, thoughts, and behaviors. And it's important that we are taking care of ourselves and our mental health in these times. So with that being said, I'm going to share my presentation. One sec here. We practiced this once, but I'm hoping it works well. Okay, so I can't even hear if you guys see it, but I'm hoping to see it.
It's good. We can see it.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. So before I begin with our webinar, I'm sure half of you are wondering what the heck is NLP practitioner? I get asked that every time I do a talk or even just begin coaching. So I've taken the liberty to help you better understand my credentials because not all people know about NLP. So NLP practitioners, NLP is short for neuro-linguistic programming, which is the use of language to program our nervous system into more useful habits. Neuro means relating to the nervous system. In other words, the information we take in through our senses influences our neurological function. And linguistic, this is obviously about language. As we understand and are more aware of language and the way we use our words and how we structure them, we are better to understand the information for making decisions and how to communicate consciously and unconsciously. And then last but not least, programming here refers to habits. So I'm sure with GFit Wellness, you guys all talk about habits and how to create better habits. But with NLP, we develop habits. Some are useful. You know, we have all those habits that maybe aren't as useful. But NLP teaches us that we can develop and encourage more useful ones by modeling others and what they do. So some of the benefits of NLP coaching, as you can see on the screen, connecting to your purpose, values, and motivation. Because you were probably reading it before I get there, I'm just going to say the last one, which is my favorite. In many cases, it's enjoying your own hero's journey through life, aka your story. Owning that story and being proud of it and having that confidence. So that's kind of in a nutshell what NLP coaching is. The other experience that I have is I'm a peer support specialist. I have a lot of trauma-informed training due to the work that I do, and also being in the being a mental health advocate. But a certified peer support specialist essentially is a person who has significant life-altering experience. This is also referred to as lived experience. You might have heard it before, but so for myself, that was experiencing family violence at a really young age at the hands of my no longer stepfather. That was for 16 years. And because of that, turning into the childhood trauma, turning into mental illness in my adulthood. So I was diagnosed at 21 with borderline personality disorder, depression. And then throughout my 20s, I struggled with eating disorders, including orthorexia and bulimia. So very serious conditions and disorders. And so having those experiences brought me to where I am today. And that's kind of part of that owning my story. And I had a coach through that process as well. So moving on. So for today, I'm really excited. We only have a short hour, but something I do want to point out is I created this webinar in mind to make sure that it's a much higher level thinking webinar, but at the same time using practical self-care tips, but not in a way that ones that you usually see on, say, Google. Like if you Googled self-care and coronavirus right now, you'd find multiples and multiples of different pages. So I don't want to be reiterating the same things that you guys are already going to be seeing if you took a quick Google look. So today, that's why I'm going to show you practical techniques that I have learned along my healing journey. All right. So before we begin, I want you to take a moment to answer this question, these two questions. I've asked you to bring a pen and a journal, and you will be using it, but if you don't have it right now, please go grab it. We can't see you, we can't hear you, so this is kind of your time to take for yourself and to get really deep and reflect with us. I will be guiding the whole way. All I ask is that you genuinely try and participate in your way and just fully listen and grasp it as much as you can. So the first question is, with your journal and your pen, how is the impact of COVID-19, how is it affecting you? Okay, honestly, just how is it affecting you? What is the first words that come up for you? And I'm going to also mention that there will be silence from me. So just take that as an opportunity for you to answer. And when you have a moment after that answer, I want you to answer, what are the troubling things or feelings that come up for you while being in self-isolation? Name one or two. Okay. Because I have no idea what you guys are doing, I'm just gonna go to the next. Okay. So what is emotional resilience? Emotional resilience is when we are able to calm our distressed mind after encountering a negative experience. It is intrinsic motivation and inner force by which we can hold ourselves through all the downsides of life. All right. So these are some of the things that we're going to be going over are the main elements of emotional resilience. But of course, in the time frame that we have, we can't go over all of them. So we are just going to do a few from these elements, such as, I'm going to go into the next, emotional regulation. So for emotional regulation, this means recognizing your feelings, because being aware of your feelings is vital. Because strong feelings of anxiety or sadness can make you feel powerless. It's important you practice naming the feeling, then you might, with that, you might have a better chance at understanding it and being in control. Another is flexible thinking and optimism. Can we see things the way they actually are, and can we make the best out of the situation? And, this never means dismissing something or being not seeing the reality of what something you might be going through, but it does mean that you aren't locked into the negative thinking. Another one we're going to go through is self-efficacy. I think I said that right. Which is the confidence in your ability to solve problems. This is also knowing your weaknesses and recognizing them and adapting, just so you have the ability to learn and to cope. So one that's not on here, on the elements of emotional resilience, and that I think is so vital, and I'll bring in if you want to add it to your list, is asking for help. Asking for help is not a weakness, and that is something that I have heard so much along the way, that people are so afraid to ask for help. But I'm telling you, that is the one thing that has saved me through my journey, is asking for help and taking those steps to find that support system, whoever that is for you. So today, by the end of the workshop, my hope is that you have a few extra tools to practice these elements. And when we're finished here today, if you want to email me, we'll have my email at the end. I have more techniques and resources that I can send you, and we'll add on whatever we maybe don't complete today. So again, all right, the techniques we're going to focus on today are self-hypnosis. So this is kind of like mindfulness, but in an NLP technique. And then another is reframing. So this is like challenging self-defeating thoughts and behaviors and adopting new ones. And if we have time, hopefully we do, we'll do a bit of the identifying self-care practices that work for you. All right. So I'm putting just a photo on the screen because I don't want you to be distracted. As I mentioned, I can't see you guys, whatever you're doing. Hopefully you're in a place that you're comfortable, because I'm going to help guide you through these exercises. So do not worry about being seen or anything of that nature, because we can't. So this is where we're going to put in the work. I'm going to begin by asking you to participate, and asking you to be fully engaged, but just listen and do the best that you can. So with the self-hypnosis, we're going to start by allowing yourself to get comfortable. Again, I'm guiding you through this process. And then I will later on send you the instructions if you want them. But I want you to fully participate now. So I'm taking a deep breath, and I want you to, again, get comfortable. And I want you to sit or lay down in a comfortable position that works for you. Maybe you're in your bedroom, maybe you're in your living room, wherever that is. I'm going to ask you to relax your mind and body and to feel yourself beginning to drift into a state of calm, more of a state of relaxation. This exercise that we're going to be doing, I'm just going to ask you to listen to my voice and just fully participate if you can. We're going to begin with your eyes open, and we're going to start with a few deep breaths. I'm going to ask you to stare at one spot directly in front of you. That's hopefully a spot on the wall. Try not to look through a window if you are. Find one spot and just allow yourself to stare at that and take 3 deep, deep breaths. As you take those deep breaths, I want you to get more comfortable, relax your shoulders, sink into your chair. And as you're focusing on your breath, I want you to continue concentrating on that one spot on the wall. As you concentrate, I want you to slowly open your peripheral of your vision. I want you to still focus on that one spot on the wall, but I want you to acknowledge the other items in your room. Maybe it's a light fixture or a TV, maybe it's a chair, or maybe it's a candle, whatever it is, just notice it. Still focusing on that spot, I want you to notice 2 more items. Maybe it's maybe you have a fireplace going, maybe it's a pillow near you, maybe it's a picture. Just notice it and focus. Still focusing on your breathing, I want you to concentrate on something that you're hearing. This could be the sound of your breathing, the voice, my voice, the brushing up of the wind against the window, whatever it is, just notice it. Still focusing on your breath, I want you to now concentrate on something that you are feeling. Maybe it's the movement of your muscles. Maybe you're sore from your workout. Or maybe you notice space between your shoulder blades, or the way you feel when you're taking a deep breath. Maybe it's the heaviness of your feet on the ground, or the way that your body's sitting in the chair. Just notice. Still focusing on your breathing, I want you to stare at that one spot. Keep staring. We're going to go back and we're going to notice what you're seeing. Is it the light fixture in the corner? Or is it the TV? Whatever it is, just notice. Continuing with your breathing, I want you to notice 2 sounds in the room. Maybe it's still my voice. Maybe it's the wind brushing up against the window. Whatever it is, just notice. Now I want you to pay attention to just 2 things that you are feeling. Maybe it's how your body feels sinking in your chair, or how you feel your body feels against, your feet feel against the floor. Whatever it is, just notice. Now I invite you to close your eyes. Take a deep breath, and I invite you to become relaxed. I invite you to feel yourself drifting ever so slightly in a calm, peaceful state where you can just let go of all your worries. Still breathing. I want you to imagine your eyes are still open. With your closed eyes, I want you to notice the things that you were seeing in the room. This could be what you saw beforehand. This could be something that you're seeing completely new. Just notice. I now want you to imagine the sounds you heard. Maybe it's still the sound of my voice, but with your eyes closed, I just want you to go a little bit deeper, and I want you to become aware of the sensations inside your body. Maybe you feel a tingling sensation. Maybe you feel pain. Maybe you feel numbness. Whatever it is, just notice. And as you're still feeling this sense of calm, focusing on your breathing, I'm going to ask you to come back to the room and ask you to open your eyes. And I'm going to guide you to the next exercise. Because this next one that we're going to be doing, it's best when we are in a state of calm. And if you guys were with me on that, then hopefully you're in that kind of calm state. So the instructions, again, I can send this to you guys, the instructions as well as the presentation. So just please follow up with an email, but we're going to continue working through these next slides together. So this is for reframing. While you follow along, you might be feeling a little bit heavy because of the meditation or the hypnosis, self-hypnosis, but this is a good time to try this exercise. You remember that question that I asked you before? How is the impact of COVID-19 affecting you? And what are the troubling feelings that come up for you while you're in this state of self-isolation? This is where you are going to reframe those responses, whatever came up for you. So if you do need a moment to answer that question again, I'm going to say it out loud one more time, just so you can have an answer. Anything that comes up for you. How is the impact of COVID-19 affecting you? And what are the troubling feelings that come up for you while being in isolation? This could, in general, just be a feeling or a response in your body or your mind that you'd rather not feel. So going into a state of reframing, I want you to imagine that place you were just in with your hypnosis. I want you to still get into that comfortable state, And I want you to ask yourself a question. I want you to fully communicate with that part of you that feels uncomfortable, whether that's fear, anxiety, whether that's just the fear of uncertainty with COVID-19, or maybe it's financial reasons, maybe it's jobs or your friends you're worried about, what your loved ones, whatever it is. I want you to fully try and communicate with that part of you that feels uncomfortable. I want you to ask yourself, am I willing to communicate with myself? And with that communication, I'm ready to listen to a sensation wherever in my body. If it's a sensation, if it's an image or a voice or sound, whatever comes up for you, if you get something like a tingling or anything of that nature, I want you to then thank that part of you for responding to that uncomfortable feeling that you're responding to right now. And whatever comes up for you, I also want you to give compassion to yourself, because that's really key. So if you felt some sort of sensation, and maybe you're still feeling it as I guide you through this, that's okay too. I want you to just ask yourself, what is the positive intention of me feeling uncomfortable? Ask that part, that uncomfortable part of you, what is it that it wants? What positive thing is it trying to do for me? And if this helps, you can definitely add this in your journal, but just try and stay along as much as possible. I'll ask that again. What is the positive intention doing here? What does it want? And what is it trying to do for me? Thing here is to recognize the difference between the parts of you that has this intention and know the difference in the way that it's actually making you behave. So with fear is that you're scared and you want to buy a bunch of toilet paper to stock up. Is it buying a bunch of food because you don't know how long it is? Whatever that feeling is, it's reacting with a behavior. And this is that time to ask yourself, why is that? Name that feeling, name that emotion, because it has an intention. So you can follow along with me and take a few deep breaths while you're answering those. Maybe you're journaling, maybe you're just saying it out loud. I want you to, as you're going to the next step, allow yourself to think of a few new choices that could be replaced with this behavior. So with your journal, I want you to ask yourself, will other choices be as good or even better than how I've been behaving, or how my fear or my feelings want me to behave? So ask yourself, are there any new choices, ones that could be good or better than the previous behavior? Just notice what comes up for you and take a few deep breaths. And moving forward, when this response has changed, if you have choices that come up for you, in the future, how will it be different? Again, in the future, if these choices are what has changed, how will it be different for you? If it's a feeling, write it. If it's an emotion, write it. If it's an overall experience, write that too. Just whatever comes up for you. I invite you to write it in your journal. So as we're done that part of the exercise, which I'm sure being from this side of the end where I have no idea what you guys are doing can be very uncomfortable, but I'm just living for uncomfortableness right now. I'm going to move. So I do have the steps for you guys if you want those in the future. We're going to move into the next exercise because I see that we have a bit of time. We're probably not going to get to the end, but actually, how much time do we need for questions, Grant or Mohammed?
Probably 5 minutes or so would suffice.
For questions?
Yeah.
Okay, so we've got, okay, perfect. Okay, so thank you, Grant. So like I said, you can Google self-care practices all day long. There are so many wonderful things you can do out there. But there are studies out there that if you start reflecting on your personal values, and a lot of us don't do that very often, even in the work that I do, I only do my values like 2 to 3 times a year because it's easy to forget. But there are studies out there that say if you reflect on your personal values, they are a huge buffer for psychological and physiological stress. Even especially when you use affirmations or you apply other self-care practices, just reflecting back on your values can be hugely beneficial. So with that in mind, I want to just ask you a few questions. And I know, again, I don't know what you guys are saying on the other end, but these are kind of the time for you to take these questions and you can journal it or you can reflect on it later. But one of the things I want to do is describe the new challenges you face with COVID-19. Describe the new challenges of you being in self-isolation. Just take a moment to spring what comes up for you and write that down. And as you continue to go through these questions, maybe that's later today or later tonight, I think the biggest piece is knowing that we're going to look at your values as well. So the second question is identify reasons to get through the challenge. So maybe that's for your family, maybe that's to get through it for your loved ones, you have children, whatever that is, just identify reasons. Two should suffice. So now we're going to move into the next slide. And this is where there are a ton of values for you to see. I want you to just take a look at this list and I want you to write down 5 that spring up for you immediately. I mean, there's so many that a few can come up for you instantly. So health, for me, compassion, connectedness, those are just some that pop up for me immediately. So I just want you to take that time and have 5 values that come up for you. Just give you a few more seconds there. With those values, we're going to move into another question. What are some actions or activities that you can do that are based on your values? So for example, for myself, connectedness is a huge value of mine, connection. So for me, is it making sure my loved ones are taken care of? So reaching out to them. Is it making sure that my neighbors who I know, some of them are a little bit elder, like, do they have the necessities that they need? Do I need to pick something up for them, and leave it at their doorstep? Whatever that is, that could be beneficial as a self-care routine. Maybe being alone is something that you value. Well, alone, you are alone, or you're with family, you're stuck in a busy house. Maybe taking a bath is something that you want to do. Whatever that is, just write down some activities that might work based upon your values. And then the last question, and I'll leave this up for a minute, is what isn't something that you can do today, tomorrow, and next week? How can you apply those activities based upon your values? So I'll give you a few minutes with that. We still have quite a bit of time for questions. So if you have your journal, here's a good moment to write out your answers. Just give you a few minutes, a few moments. So what I probably will do is, Grant, I can bring it back to the first questions if you think that'll be helpful, or we can go into question period and we can send this to all our viewers, our audience after. It's up to you.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we can start with some questions now.
I can hear you, yeah.
Okay, so I did have a question, and
Yeah.
it was in relation to the hypnosis versus meditation. And I was just curious what some of the fundamental differences might be, or if there's certain benefits to one versus the other, or certain scenarios that you might use one versus the other.
That's actually such a good question. So I actually chose the self-hypnosis because I found that to be way more effective for a lot of people, especially my clients, because a lot of the times when we say, okay, let's practice some mindfulness or let's practice meditation, a lot of people are like, okay, how do I do that? And oftentimes that is because we're so worked up in our heads, and these thoughts are going back and forth and coming through. And when you're trying to say, okay, just focus on your breathing, oftentimes that's not enough. And those thoughts pass and they go. And in meditation, oftentimes we'll say, just let them pass. But still you're thinking about it, right? But with self-hypnosis, I find that so many people, because they're having to concentrate being present, it just allows them to get into that meditative state a lot easier because they have something that they can connect with and then focus on instead of their thoughts. That help?
Yeah, it did actually. And I struggle with meditation personally. I find it difficult, and I
Not
did
the only one.
I did feel very relaxed during the exercise today. So thank you for that.
Okay, good. I'm glad to hear. Did I answer all those questions that you had though? I feel like there was one or two in there.
Yeah, no, you did. actually. The other one was, is there a certain scenario that one works better than the other? But you kind of explained that as well.
Right.
So.
I think to answer it, to expand on that, is it's really like the self-hypnosis, and I'll again send that to you guys. That is super helpful when you're alone by yourself. I find I use it in the shower all the time, like, because you can focus on the feeling of the water. I'll often, even if you just focus on, say, for example, most times when we're stressed or we're feeling tense, our tongues are at the top of our mouth. Just notice where your tongue is right now. If you notice it's at the top, just simply drop it. And that can be something you can focus on when you're doing that exercise. Just recognizing where you are with your body, the things that you hear. It's just, if I find it's a good technique when you're even in the car as a passenger, or not while you're driving. Just any time that you're, maybe there's more noise around where you can't just sit on a mat and focus on meditating. Hopefully that helps. All right. So we have 2 questions here. I'm going to take this down. Okay, sorry. How do I do stop sharing? Okay, perfect. So what is the best way to start a gratitude daily ritual? I would say, for me personally, journaling in the morning is super helpful. But in order to like get that practice, a lot of times they say, you know, it takes 21 days to create a habit. If that, like, you can try doing something every morning by setting a reminder in your phone. I have a lot of clients actually put reminders. That's a really helpful way. And I actually ask them to, it's everything with my clients are very catered to their lifestyle. So for example, with trying to get reminders for gratitudes, I'll actually ask them, like, what's the time of the day that's either where you find yourself looking on your phone the most, or where you find yourself bored, or maybe you're the most worked up. Like, what is that time of the day where you think would work best for you? And that's kind of a reminder for them to get to that place where they need to write down whether it's gratitude or what they're feeling. Again, identifying those emotions that they're going through. Okay. And the next one, can you please give some suggestions for helping our children cope with isolation, specifically younger children that may not be able to use these techniques? Okay, that's great. So I'd say for children, I think one of the biggest things that I've been kind of identifying as I'm learning more about what's going on is allowing your children to express their feelings about what's going on. Like, just allowing them to identify what's going on for them. So are they scared? Are they, worried about grandma or grandma? Like, just allow them to express themselves and to fully be engaged and listen, and to just support them in that process. Especially like as a peer support worker, that's one of the biggest things, is identifying that you won't always have the answers. You don't always have advice, and you don't have to give advice. Sometimes just listening and being supportive is the best thing for somebody. Hopefully that was helpful. Do you have a guide to start journals if you're someone that has never done this or don't know how to start? Do I have a guide? Like kind of like a prompt, I would probably say a really common one is usually, I am grateful for blank. But I find for myself, I often do, today I'm feeling blank. These are the emotions that I'm feeling. What triggered it is my big thing. I often get triggered quite a bit. Or I notice my triggers a lot more now. And that's often what I ask, hey, what triggered that? Because often when we have an emotion, and if you've been triggered by something, we often react in a secondary emotion because of that trigger. So for example, if I'm feeling super nervous about COVID and somebody says something like, well, I don't really feel like, it's that serious. That may be a trigger for me, and I might get mad because deep down, I'm scared. So how do I react? I react in anger. So hopefully that's helpful. Thanks again, guys. What is the best way to start or keep connectedness going within busy family daily life, or when people are all together in self-isolation, when everyone's mindset is in a different spot? These good questions, guys. Okay, so connectedness within busy family. Okay, so connectedness with yourself. Okay, I think, it's tough because, from what I have heard from people, it's creating, like, making sure that people are spreading me time within their families, their busy families. So for example, like if you have a partner, making sure that you guys are scheduling in me time, whether that's in the morning, whether that's at night, and creating that kind of, I call it me time, but that could be your moment of connectedness to do, your self-hypnosis, or to take your bath, or to go for a walk. I love going for walks. Do you have a pet? Is that your time to take your pet out? Anything of that nature. I think just scheduling it in, just like you would schedule in a workout. Did that answer? Okay. Hopefully that answered those ones. I didn't type these answers out. I hope that's okay. Okay, Grant. How are we doing over there?
Good. I actually had another one.
Okay, good.
They're always looking for like the magic bullet, or the Reader's Digest version, or like the secret sauce or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
You have a particular routine when you're, in the zone for yourself, that you implement on a daily basis? Like for example, like when I'm, in the zone, I'm waking up super early, going for a walk, then I come inside, I do some journaling and some gratitude for a few minutes, then I plan out my day, then I read for 20 minutes, have like a hot/cold shower back and forth. And I find when I have like a really structured routine like that, everything seems to fall into place. So is there any certain hacks or routine tips that you use, whether it's like priming for the next day, or shutting your phone off by a certain time of the day, or anything like that you could kind of share with us, just to help us out?
Great question, Grant. So I'm human, and I am not perfect. I have, crazy mornings or crazy nights. My life changes drastically. And so oftentimes my self-care and my, mental health can decline in ways. And so for me, it's actually taking a moment to identify where I'm at. So for today, for example, like getting prepared for this workshop or in this webinar in such a short time, I had to really like wake up really early and fit this in with my full-time job, which I'm so happy to do. But I know that I need sleep. I need to make sure that I'm getting a proper nutritious meal, because I probably haven't had the time to take care of myself like as much as I would normally. So I think just identifying, really figuring out deep down, okay, what's missing? What could I do? What could I improve on? And creating an action plan for that. So again, that self-care. What can I do today? What can I do tomorrow? What can I do next week? And making sure those are kind of in SMART goals. And I'm sure you guys go over that quite a bit with GFit Wellness as well.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Any other questions? Oh my gosh, there's more. Sorry. I had to scroll down. So what is the best way to support people that are in their own and they are feeling lonely? Okay. This is probably one I can really relate to, especially being like depression and back in my earlier 20s. I feel like when it comes to feeling lonely, it's having that set group of support and just reaching out. And I know that sounds so simple, but if you don't feel comfortable reaching out to a friend and saying, hey, this is what's going on with me, why don't you just ask them how they're doing? Asking others how they're doing is a great connection starter to make sure that, hopefully that they'll ask you to. And that might be an opportunity for you to say, I'm not doing as well today, or, I find we underestimate the ability to connect with our loved ones or our support system by just simply asking how they're doing and genuinely caring about them, and about what their answer is. And if the opportunity arises, then allow them to hear also what you're going through. Hopefully that was helpful. Next question. In response to Grant's comment, structure is important, but how do you keep it inclusive with a partner? In other words, me time could be us time. Ooh, that's a really good question too. Okay, so for example, my partner and I, we have completely different opposite schedules. But our me time is obviously maybe cooking, maybe watching our favorite Crave or Netflix show before bed, and that's turning off our phones before bed. Maybe that's taking our dog for a walk, like trying to fit that schedule in. But all these things, the main component I would say is communication. Like connection and communication are how you can kind of have that structure and that flexibility as well. So for example, if something comes up for my partner, then he's communicating with me. I can't make it for dinner tonight. Let's do this instead. Okay. Then I still feel that kind of connection as well, because I'm in the know and understanding what's going on for him, and that keeps that opportunity for us to connect. So hopefully that helped. And if I'm not answering any of these questions correctly, you can email me and I can try and re-answer them for you. So when in your personal journey did you recognize that you need to ask for help? Ooh, okay. Well, this one's big for me because, thank you, Amber. I was literally sick. Like I was sick constantly because I was deep down wanting to tell somebody so badly about what I was going through. At the time, I was too afraid to ask anybody, like my friends, family, anybody that I knew, because I didn't want to tell anybody that I wasn't perfect, or that I was a human and experiencing sadness and all these things. So instead, I told the one person who I knew couldn't tell, and that was my doctor. So it was baby steps. And the first person I told was my doctor. And through my doctor, she referred me to a psychiatrist. And through that psychiatrist, that allowed me to open up. Now, that's my journey, and that can be different for everybody, right? But it was really recognizing that it was just declining. And at the point where I started to realize that I needed to tell somebody was honestly when I started hearing the thoughts that were coming out. And I'm not saying that in a version of like I was hearing voices, but the thoughts and the terrible sayings that I was saying in my head were so loud that I just couldn't ignore them anymore. So hopefully that helped. Okay, and Chantal, last one. How do I deal and handle others who have a negative mindset when I'm trying to stay so positive? Oh, you guys, these questions are great. So I would say boundaries are everything. For a lot of people, it's hard to keep those boundaries, but I would say when somebody's in like that negative mindset, or say if they're gossiping or if they're saying something negative about another person, which happens more than we'd like, I'm sure, you can easily either change the subject, which takes, well, actually I was hoping we could talk about this instead, Or you can, I guess we answered it. Or you can move, you can, with boundaries, you can let them know that you're feeling uncomfortable. Like, I don't really want to talk about this. Or you can simply take a break and step away. There's a few options, but I usually just try and change the subject. So hopefully that answered that. Grant?
No, I don't have a question. I just unmuted myself just in case because I saw that there wasn't any more questions at this time.
Okay, awesome. And look at that, we have 3 minutes to spare.
We're not in any rush, but I just, if there's no further questions, I just wanted to, again, thank everyone for joining us today. And we hope that you took away some value. And Chantal, thank you very much for hosting this and putting this together on very, very short notice. It was excellent. I love the interactive nature of the call. And I really loved your transparency and your vulnerability because it makes things much more relatable. And how can we reach you if we need your help?
You can contact me through my email, which is chantal@tilliontrue.com, which I can, whatever is best way to give that. You can actually check my website. So all that information is there with my phone number and everything. So that's www.tilliontrue.com. So that would be the best. And then there's one more question, Grant.
Yeah, sure.
Changing the subject to me is brushing the issue under the carpet. So here's what I'll say for whoever wrote that, please email me. And I would love to go into more depth about that. And maybe that's a conversation I can speak about on social media or something, or send in an email. I feel like that there can be so a longer answer for that and more options. So hopefully that helps, because I'm also trying to be mindful of everyone's time as well.
Okay, awesome. So just a reminder that we're going to be continuing to provide free webinars that are going to tackle all of the pillars of wellness in the coming days. Our next webinar is a bodyweight exercise class on Saturday at 9 a.m. with our very own coach, Natalie Lopez. No weights, no problem. It's a 45-minute bodyweight workout that will strengthen and tone your muscles, and it's for all levels of fitness. It will also give you some great exercises that you can do on your own after the call if this isolation period continues and the gyms remain closed. And then on Sunday, we've got at 9 a.m. a strong 30 by Zumba class by our very own coach, Tyne Mills. It's going to be a super fun 30-minute class where we'll be exercising to music. And we'll be continuing these webinars next week. We'll be posting them on our social media platforms to keep everyone in the loop. So spread the word and tell your family and your friends and your coworkers. And I just wanted to thank you, everyone, for the support. We're in this together. We'll get through this quickly, especially if we follow the advice from the experts in terms of isolation, social distancing, and respiratory hygiene. And thank you so much, Chantal. We're really grateful to have you tonight, and we appreciate your lessons.
Thank you for having me, Grant. This was awesome. Thanks so much.
Have a good night, everyone.
Bye.